Hello and welcome to Sor Mind. I'm Dan Cosley, and in this episode I'm going to look at Opus 44, number 4 by Fernando Sor. And this is a study in a variety of things. It's mostly a two-part, pretty contrapuntal texture. And I really like when Sor writes like this and other, plucked string composers like Da Milano or Sylvius Leopold Weiss, when they write in this kind of two-part style where the voices are having a dialogue and they're echoing each other. This is a great example of that, and what we can pick up from this is both technical and harmonic information. And so I'm just going to dig right in and we'll just take it measure by measure. So as I said, it's a two-voice texture that's pretty contrapuntal, and the first thing we have is we have a pickup, the open string G, to the C on the second string. And we want to make this sound, again, melodic, not harmonic. It's going to be an ongoing theme in this series, dealing with these different textures in different ways. In this case, because it's melodic, we want this first melodic shape to sound almost like it would sound if we played it only on the third string. Take a listen to this. If I play G, oops, and then it goes. So I'll play just the first little bit there. Now, we can't get that homogeneity or similarity of sound when we play it across strings, but we should aim for that sort of non-overlapping, each note replacing the next kind of sound. And so that's why when we play these first two notes, we should dampen the G when we play the C. So, do, and then the echo in the bass voice, do, mi. Same thing, we'll dampen, clean up the C when we play the E in the bass. So we have within the first four notes of the piece, we've got two areas and two different techniques of dampening. I'll do it like this. So, do, dampen with the index, then probably I lift the third finger and I touch the fifth string with the thumb, with the right hand thumb. Now, that harmony is C. Together, taken together, those notes create the C, the tonic harmony. And then you'll notice in bar 2, or the pickup to bar 2, we have sort of really a descending D minor arpeggio, but it's approached from the B. So this B serves sort of as a 6/5. Again, I'll call it a suspension, but it's a little neighbor tone. The B is like an upper neighbor tone to the D minor arpeggio. But although I conceive of that harmony in bar 2 as D minor, I'm sure to play it not as an overlapping arpeggio, but as two distinct melodies. So here's the upper voice B as a pickup to A in the second bar. So then echo, that's all D minor. The D, of course, at the end of bar 2 belongs to the D minor harmony. The C is a passing tone. And then at the beginning of bar 3, we've got a change of harmony. This whole measure, all of these notes combine to create G7. There are no non-harmonic tones or non-chord tones in measure 3. Let's listen to the pickup to measure 3. I'll play this slowly for you. I'll do that once more. Now, although these these studies are maybe intermediate level studies, you could say. They present some real challenges. To play these properly requires maybe some taking apart, disassembly of the voices. So in this measure, in measure 3, if we take just the bass voice, it sounds like this. 1, and that's the downbeat of measure 4. Take a listen. So, so, fa, mi. Now we want to be careful that we don't create just a sense of a harmonic wash. This should sound like a melodic leap of an octave. So, so, fa, mi. You know, I don't sing these things just to torture you. It's so important that you have that connection to the voice, because to play an octave on the guitar is one thing. To sing the octave and feel that melodic leap is another. So even though I sing poorly, it helps me get a sense of lyricism and the kind of vocal inflection and connectivity. So if you play that lower voice, it should sound melodic. Now let's hear it in context with the upper voice. And to me, that's already, giving you some intense contrapuntal workout that would serve you well if you go to play like the lute music of Bach, for example. In this little, maybe intermediate level Sor study, you're already getting some advanced technique. Okay, so focusing on the harmony in that bar, as I said, everything is G7. If we just look in isolation at bar 3, let's name these chord tones. You've got the 3rd in the upper voice, so it's 5, 4, 3. Then the melody takes the flat 7 root. Here we have the flat 7 and the 5th, the interval of a 6th, but the 3rd helps us approach the... Now, in jazz language, we often call this an enclosure, where we know we're headed towards the note C at the downbeat of bar 4, and we enclose it with its upper and lower neighbor. It's easier to see maybe on this part of the guitar. There are 3 notes. The neighbor notes are enclosing the kind of target tone, which is the root of the harmony C. You'll see that kind of melodic shape a lot in Sor. So we have E and C, which express the first inversion tonic chord here. Then we have 2 Ds, which are really, it's contrary motion, it's passing motion to the C and E on beat 2 of measure 4, and then the open G. So that whole bar is really C major. The Ds, the octave Ds, are passing motion as he sort of expands the harmony in contrary, like in a contrary kind of spreading out. So I'll play let's just hear measure 4. So this is really the interval of a minor 6th, but part of C major, passing motion, and then, now here, you'll notice that I return to some certain themes. When we play the C and E, I play the G, I want to silence that E that's ringing, because I don't want like a 3-part harmony at that point. Nope, I want the sense of a melodic instead of everything ringing. Okay, so measure 5 is all C major stuff. So I have measure 6. No, what's happening in measure 6 is just a sense of a G major harmony in first inversion. We've got the 5th of the chord, the 3rd of the chord, the root, and then the root again. But you'll notice that the E, the pickup to measure 6, that E in the upper voice, again, it's sort of a neighbor tone, an upper neighbor tone to the 5th of G. So mi, re. Now, that neighbor tone resolves to an F sharp, which is outside of the key of C major. And so here we need to analyze measure 7 and see what the harmony is. The inclusion of the F sharp, the C, the D, the A, and then another F sharp, this is a strong indication that we've got a D major harmony, D7 harmony. And this is, again, the secondary dominant. So this is the 5 of the G chord that we're going to in measure 8. This is exactly the same as what we've looked at in previous episodes, so I won't go too deeply into this, but we should identify, if we call this D7, we should identify what is outside of that definition. And in measure 7, you'll notice the upper voice, there's an E. So what is a D7 harmony? It's D, F sharp, A, C. 1, 3, 5, flat 7, 1, 3, 5, flat 7. And everything conforms to those 4 notes with the exception of the E in beat 1, upper voice of measure 7. What is that note? Let's just call it a passing note. So this is the 3rd of the harmony, a passing 2nd of the harmony, and then root, flat 7, 5, 3, and then we're at the note G, which is the root of our dominant chord in the key. So back to the top. This etude has the repeats, right? It's got an A and B section, and the way it's written is A, A, B, B. So that G7, I'm sorry, just G harmony ends the first section, the A section. Now, what's interesting is when we play through that again, and then we get to the end of that, and we're going into the B section at the beginning of measure 9. In previous etudes, we saw how Sor would often start the second half on the dominant of the key and then develop that. But in this case, he sort of seems like he's going to do that. There's a pickup, there's a G, an octave, but that is not the dominant of the key. That is actually A7. So why is that A7? Well, we've got a G, we've got an E, a C sharp, and an A. If we spell that backwards, A, C sharp, E, G, that's an A dominant 7th chord. So I hear that going from A7 to D minor to G7 to C and bar 11. So bar 9 is A7, flat 7, 5, 3, roots, both of them are roots. This is kind of a D minor song, passing to G, G7 in first inversion, B, G, D, F natural, and then in bar 11 we have kind of an intense little series of tension release kind of dissonances here. So if we say that the first beat of bar 11 is a C major harmony, then both the F and the D would be non-chord tones, and they are upper neighbors to first the third and then the root. So what do I mean? So we have an F resolving to E, then we have a D resolving to a C, and then here maybe we call this a G7 over G7 over F, or we could call it a D minor chord. Probably we call it does it feel like D minor? I think it does. D minor in first inversion, which would make the B A like a 6/5 kind of a dissonance, and then the E D would be like a 9/8 dissonance, right? So measure 12. We feel like we're hearing C major, although there are only two notes, and then in the second beat of measure 12, that's G major. You know, there's always a slight hesitation when I'm trying to name these, because we really only have two notes happening all the time. And so there's an ambiguity sometimes about the harmony. I mean, specifically like in measure 12, it looks expressive of a 1/5, but there's no third in the 1 chord, and there's no fifth in the 5 chord. So, you know, we're left to sort of fill in the harmony, almost, you know, at a subconscious level. As I'm warming up, my guitar's going flat a little bit. So, however we define the harmony, that's going to affect how we play these tones, because it's going to affect how we're defining what is harmonic, what is consonant, what is dissonant, and then those resolutions that are appropriate to the style kind of flow from that understanding of the basic harmony. So, you know, to back up a second, in measure 11, the F to E, so with the definition of, you know, measure 11 being C major to D minor in first inversion to C major to G, that makes us kind of conceive of the melody notes in a certain way, in a certain sense of instability moving to stability with those non-chord tones. So, okay, let's look at measure 13. So here, measure 13, this feels like C major. And then we have really a chromatic passing tone, but let's say it's like a real harmonic motion. What is the note C sharp doing in the key of C? Well, we could say that if we stack thirds, right, we say C sharp, and then there's a G, an E also in that measure, C sharp, E, and G, although they're not all ringing together. C sharp, E, G. Let's put it like this. Can you play it like this? C sharp, E, G. That is a C sharp diminished triad. And we would expect expect that to move maybe to some kind of D chord, and in this case it does. It moves to D minor in bar 14. So this is a 7 diminished 7 of a 2. This is again a secondary function, not a secondary dominant because it's not a dominant chord, although it functions like one. We call it a secondary function. C sharp diminished, and then it's going to go to D minor. Only the voicing is this, and it's going here. So these are both in first inversion. They have their thirds in the lowest voice. The third, the flat third, the flat 5, the root of C sharp diminished, and then the flat third, the 5th, and the root of D minor. Take a moment to listen to, this is pick up to 13. Now, Sor gets a lot of harmonic kind of pull and that chromatic tension, just changing one note in bar 15. We go from D minor to a sense of D7 just by moving the F to an F sharp. So we could say bar 15 again is 5 of 5. It's a D7 harmony. It's in first inversion sort of. I say sort of because these are not overlapping harmonies, but if we did overlap them like this, you'd have a D over F sharp, and then the C natural comes into play right at the end. So that's a D7 in first inversion, moving to this really G7 in bar 16. But he's taking and introducing it melodically. Okay, bar 16. We're on the 5 chord. This is the 3rd root. Here's that octave jump again. Then, kind of a poignant dissonance, that flat 7 and root right next to each other, which are going to resolve outward to C major in first inversion. Passing note D, that's the root of the harmony. Now, this is going to require some imagination, or maybe some deliberation. You know, what is this harmony? It's D and G. Well, it's probably part of the 5 chord, so we'll call it a 5, a dominant chord in second inversion maybe. Then the E is a passing note going to measure 18. So we have, on the downbeat of measure 18, probably we call it F major, I don't know. It's just 2 notes. Then more contrary motion, maybe that's E minor. Then octaves again, 2 Ds, is that D minor? We could say it is. Then C major with a passing tone. In measure 19, again, we get a more clear sense of, a real clear sense of a G7 harmony. But man, the texture is woven in such a, like an intricate and thoughtful way that C major, passing motion, C major, we've seen that before. Dampening. Measure 21 is C major with a strong sense of the first inversion because we have that low E bass. So, big jump. Measure 22 is D minor in first inversion if we play it as a chord. And And some people might argue that that is F6. F major would be raise the 5th to the 6th. And then C major in bar 23. Here's a 5 chord, G major. And then in measure 24, we have a return to the tonic chord, C major. So, well, I think the new thing here, this is similar to the previous episodes and a lot of the same stuff that we talked about. The new thing here is the use of the diminished chord, or the suggestion of it at least, in measure 13. There's a C sharp diminished, remember C sharp, E, G, but the way that it's sort of voiced or laid out is in first inversion, so the third, the low E, minor third, flat 5, and then the root. And that that C sharp diminished is, for a moment, it's making the ear feel the pull to the 2 chord, the D minor chord in first inversion that we see in bar 14. So the use of a diminished triad is we've seen that for the first time in this Opus 44 now, here in number 4. The main thing, though, I think is just the advice of being really focus your attention on playing each voice melodically, and don't be afraid to just take it apart and play the individual voices a lot. You know, the bass line from the first measure sounds like this. Right? It's a little disjointed the way it's placed rhythmically. And the top voice. So boom, you know, I have a sense that there's a dialogue. You know, there are two people having a conversation, sometimes agreeing with one another. Sometimes one is dominating the conversation and the other one's taking a back seat. And that interplay of voices is quite challenging. And this piece, again, you know, I think that this Opus 44 is like solidly intermediate, in my opinion, in level. But there are passages that require real practice because there's a complex thing happening between the hands often to really give the sense of independent melodic, you know, will of the voices. So, well, I think I'll stop there on this episode. Please subscribe, and in the upcoming episode we're going to look at Opus 44 number 5. I hope you're enjoying this, and I hope you're enjoying practicing for a sore mind. All right, have a good day.